Hello and welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with your host, Rosie Gilmoss, and I have got the spectacularly named Melitta Honeycup joining me today, all the way from Madrid. Hello.
Barcelona.
From where did you say?
From next to Barcelona.
Barcelona. I wrote down the wrong Spanish city. This is me to a T, isn't it? I do apologise. This is Melitta, all the way from Barcelona. Hello, Melitta.
Hi.
Thank you ever so much for joining us. Now, I know a little bit about your story, and I do follow you on Instagram. For anybody that doesn't, you really should. Melitta is a very, very accomplished burlesque dancer. Would that an artiste, burlesque artiste? Is that the correct term? I don't want to diminish your skill. And wow, I mean, I was looking at some of the positions you get yourself in whilst I've got the electronic little device on my back, working on putting my back out, getting out of bed this morning. So yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you.
So tell me, Melitta, tell me and tell the listeners, tell us how you became a member of this kind of shitty club.
Well, up until just about almost exactly 3 years ago, I was living with my partner, Jordi, who, well, we've been together for over 6.5 years. I still have our beautiful son, who at the time was 5 years old. He's now 8. And when one marvelous day, the day after my birthday, actually, Jordi had a work accident and he fell off the building. So it was a very
What did he do?
He was an electrician, but he was mostly into like industrial installations. So it would be like air conditioning installations and like say like heavy electricity installations. And he was it was a very like banal, like really stupid accident to say. You know, the typical accident that you would everybody would be like, why and how and what and how, and there would be like endless questions, like how could it happen? So
I can relate.
Apparently, most likely he slipped or he tripped over something, and it was like the wrong time, the wrong moment, the wrong part of the rooftop, because he fell into, I would say it's like where the elevator is. So they would
Oh gosh.
It would have been just like a whole lot of faulty or unlucky circumstances and he fell on the rooftop, which was like a kind of I would say like, you know, this supposedly like strong plastic plates that would let light through. He fell over that broke, and he fell all the way down. So it's like a 12-meter fall, just that. I'm sorry to be like too graphic with it.
No, don't. No, this is what we're here for. We share these things here.
So basically the story is the day before we celebrated my birthday, the fact that we just made the down payment to buy our first house together. Everything was going fine. His business was going fine. You know, like big plans for the future. It was still like the COVID era. So that summer we were I don't know if you know, but Spain was really hit hard by the COVID regulations. So we were locked in for 3 months that spring, and we had like massive drama with the face mask and everything. So it was really not a good year altogether for the whole country, basically. And that summer was like the first 3 months that it was like lighter, and people could, I would say, get back to their normal lives and have have some fun, have a drink on a terrace on the outside or something. So that was a moment, but still, when the tragedy hit, it was still very it was made a whole lot more difficult because of the COVID situation. So there was like a whole lot of regulations around how we could do the funeral, how we could not do the funeral. But yeah, he died on the spot. There was nothing to do. And it was just downstream from there in massively dramatic ways.
I actually made a note when I was having a look at your application, and you described it as the 2.5 years since he died as a hell ride.
Yeah, it
and
was.
And yeah, that's quite the description actually, and I know a little bit more about not much because I've only read your application, but I know a little bit more about what the family dynamic situation that went on afterwards. So yeah, you've just been launched kind of out of the blue the day off your birthday, where everything's going really beautifully into this different world. And whilst I don't like to make it all about me, the day that Ben died, it wasn't my birthday, but it was Mother's Day, and we'd had this
Wow.
perfect day where we'd gone for dinner and our children were behaving. You know, just those moments where your children are like the kids in the restaurant where everyone's looking, going, "Wow!" And then plans for the future, business doing well, everything is looking up,
Yeah.
and bang, it's gone.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely the same story. So
and so you then have to tell your small child as well that their father has died, and I know as a mother how difficult that is. How, I mean, I ask you how it was. I know it's going to be awful, but how did you navigate that?
well, the thing was that mostly the story was that I think we had many unfortunate mishandlings over the whole process. Like
Hmm.
basically the whole thing started that I wasn't even communicated. Like I think in other episodes I heard we always talk about this, like how we are being communicated that something has happened and whatnot, and how in the UK it would be the NHS or the police or whoever gets to talk to you,
Hmm.
talk to you first. And for me it was just absolutely like terrible from the beginning, because I was at the shop. I was called by my mother-in-law, and she was just screaming on the phone, and she was like, just drop everything and run home, which was really just, like a terrible beginning to everything, because I didn't understand what could have been happened, because my son was at, they had these like little school camps. So he would be
Yes.
until like 1 a.m. or until, lunchtime, he would be at the school camp. So yeah, I was not with my son. And so basically, I was hit with the news in the middle of the street. And there's supposed to be in Spain like a proper like protocol that they should be coming. As far as I know, the police should be coming accompanied by a special like a psychology specialist who comes
Hmm.
from an ambulance, and they would be the ones who would tend the whole family. They would be the ones who would like specialists who would tell you
Mm.
that something
Makes sense.
fatal, I don't know, result would
Mm.
that has happened. And so literally I was being caught by my father-in-law on the streets with two policemen behind him. And yeah, I was just told right in front of the house. I was told in the middle of the streets. I was straight flat told that there was an accident and Jordi died. And
Just like that.
not having like Jordi in front of me or my son in front of me, I literally spent like 20 minutes to half an hour sitting on the pavement, being absolutely devastated. And I did not know if it was my son or my husband who died. So the only
Did
information
they?
that got to my mind was that someone died.
Oh my God, you poor thing. So you've just gone into this kind of blind panic where you don't know somebody that you love has died, but you're not sure who.
Yeah, and I was just, I was said, and logic doesn't work. We all know that it doesn't work at that time. And I guess I was just at one point, for some reason I was just starting to ask like where my son was. And then somehow I understood the information that my son was okay and he was
Hmm.
still in school. And so the deduction was that who died was
Yeah.
his father. And then somehow the police arrives and they picked me up, and then like other family members started to arrive, and somehow we got up to our flat. And from there on, it was just like people in and out all over, and I just couldn't even think about which friend of mine,
Mm.
like close friend of mine,
It
I could
become
I could call for like a while, and then I called one of them.
it becomes like a circus. I can remember this,
Yeah,
the constant visitors. And one of my children even said, Mum, why does everybody keep bringing us presents like it's a party?
yeah. Well,
And
oh,
it's, you don't know what to do you?
yeah, it's heavy.
You sort of,
Yeah, oh, well. And yeah, so I think for me, I think it started to be like very wrong from the very beginning, because I think the in-law family, since they were there, like I'm Hungarian, my family was but the other part of Europe, obviously. So it took them
Yeah.
3 days to be able, in the middle of the COVID thing, it took them 3
Yeah, of
days.
course.
3 days later was the first flight that they could get to come and accompany us. And so at first it was, I think it was a misfortune how it was communicated. Obviously the whole circus kind of situation in the house, that people in and out, and then at some point the specialist psychologist came. So at least we could prepare how we're gonna communicate the situation to our small son. And I don't know, it was, for me, it started to turn out really toxic with the in-laws, just from that point, because
From that early on.
yeah, from the early on, because literally the thing went, I'm going to be like really up close and personal, so you can cut this out. But I was on my period, right? And I had to go and at that day, I would have had to go and buy some products, to tend to my
Yes, of course.
bodily.
Your bleed, your menstruation, we don't shy away from it. Half the population will all have done it.
Yes, exactly. So I had my menstruation, and I had to go and buy some products to tend to it. And it was literally that I was desperately needing to buy those things. And even that was like a problem, that I was like, I need to go and buy something, something.
Yeah.
And I remember their faces, that they were like, how dare you? Like, what do you need to buy at this?
Yes.
And I was like, well, So it just.
I hope they were embarrassed when you told them what you needed to go and buy. I hope they felt at least a little bit shamefaced about that.
Like the whole situation started to be of that I couldn't even go to the toilet. And I mean, it's not. I'm a strong person. I consider myself a strong person, right?
I've seen you on a pole. You're strong.
Yeah. Well, physically, mentally, but the thing is, like, there was no indications whatsoever that you would need to be worried that I would go to the toilet and I would kill myself or anything.
Oh, that's what they were worried about, were they?
No, they were not. I don't know what they were worried about. So I think the point is, I had no idea what they were worried about, but it just started to be like this massive as control. Like, everything needs to be controlled by them. And obviously, fast forward, we spent 2 or 3 nights at their house with my son. And since they had these insurances for the whole family for funerals and all these things, the funeral was taken care of, and all these processes were taken care of by professionals, to say. So at least that was not a problem, an extra problem, that they were professionals who did that. But
does that mean that you didn't get any say in the funeral? Were you excluded from the planning and things like that, or did you have input?
I was minimally involved. I was asked questions, which I did not disagree. So I was asked about details, which I did not disagree. I think then again, we're going to enter to the point that there was a whole lot of things that we were not in agreement about. But the thing is, like, the thing went on that they were obligating us to stay with them 3 days, which I was just really devastated to not to say no to. And then it was just sorry, it's hard to talk about this because I've just recently processed this these days. So
I understand this, and you know, even though I spoke to a journalist yesterday and I had to kind of relay my story, and I found myself breaking down because actually I'm 5.5 years into my journey, but I've only really been processing it since I was in therapy for 2 years. So yeah, you sometimes, and even sometimes saying this, it does bring out little bits that you hadn't realized still hurt so much. And I'm just going to, so that Melitta and I spoke very briefly before we came onto the mic. And because in her application, you spoke about sort of difficulties with your in-laws. And I kind of checked with you beforehand that you were okay to talk about it, because it's a really, you described it as one of those kind of last taboos of grief, is the way that your in-laws can treat you. And I don't know any more details because I wanted to hear it with everybody else. But before you do, I wanted to kind of congratulate you, or if that's the right word, on having the courage to do this, because as you said yourself, there are many people who need to hear it.
I think somebody needs to do it. I see a whole lack of resources, as we commented before, that I think there's also, we still have, it's the whole society, but there's this, like, like it's called, like, the toxic positivity around everything in life. Everyone should be happy. And even the grief journey, it should be like, so like everything's marvelous and oh, nothing is marvelous in grief.
No. A lot of it's quite shit, isn't it?
It's like nothing is marvelous. It's not like you should see things marvelously. Like, no shit. Like, life is the shittiest situation that you can possibly find. Really.
Yeah, but there's nothing fine about
And,
this, right?
it's so that's the thing. And so I think I'm ready to talk about it also, because since we're talking in English, it's easier for me. I'm gonna do it in Spanish as well. Anyways, because I think that there you go. We just need to talk about it, so we're gonna do it. And where to go on? So I don't know. For me, the whole in-law problems and toxic grief kind of a situation started straight on. So it many friends of mine, they think that I also have, like, I might have problems with, like, doing my own grieving. Just because of this, just because of the shit show I had to face from
yes,
from his dad.
Steph will hear that and know that that's the shit show. Yes.
So the thing was that from the first times or the first days I spent with them, it was very, like, bullying. It was not letting me go to the toilet. Literally, there was a situation where they took me because my mother-in-law needed like pills, like like coffee pills. And they, I don't know how that happened, because it shouldn't really be legal at even that. My mother-in-law just walked in with me to the doctor and just ordered the doctor to give me, like, these massive calming pills. And the doctor was like, yeah, there you go.
Wow.
And now I think about it, and I think about it, how surreal it is, that this could be happening, because you walk in with a friend who is not, like, affiliated to you by, I would say, like not on your bloodline. Say, the doctor would stand up and say, like, excuse me, miss, what are you doing here? She's a grown up person, and she can tell what she needs or what she does not need. But even the healthcare system is a bit off here in Spain. So I think the background here is that in Spain, bureaucracy is terrible. The whole legal system is also terrible. And there are, like, massive legal gaps as of that. For example, Jordi and I, we held our bank accounts together. And when he died, for over a year, until I didn't have, like, really good lawyers working on it, the bank was charging even his health insurance. And every time I went to the bank and went, like, we need to do something about this. We need to cancel this. We need to take this out, or we need to handle this. They were just, no, we cannot. No, we cannot. Up until I had, like, a whole, like, a team of lawyers, literally screaming at them, like, having, like, conversation and sending them, like, lots of letters until, and if you think about it, in any other country in Europe, this would be, like, completely illegal. If someone dies, their bank account has to be blocked, or there's, like, a whole series of things that needs to be done. And for example, here it was, like, almost a year and a half, like a year and a couple of months long legal battle to do all these like paperwork kind of things.
And the thing is, you feel at the time like you're having to worry about money. And that feels really mercenary, because you don't want to have to think about money and how am I going to survive. But I was in a very similar situation. Ben was the primary breadwinner. I was actually on maternity leave as well. And his bank account was locked, and we didn't have a joint bank account. So, I mean, I had like £200 in my bank account at the time. And I was thinking, what do I do? I can't. And the same, the bank accounts would, because I had no death certificates, nobody would stop anything. So I had these, the car was £600 before I drove it off the drive. It was insane.
Yes.
And you're in a foreign country. You're not. Are you Spanish national as well?
I'm still a Hungarian national. Our son is a Spanish national. But since we're in Europe, I never had to, become a Spanish national.
So. Sorry, I'm just thinking of all this. We call it kind of the death the death admin, and it's a sadmin, I think
Yeah.
Emma Gray calls it, and it's just it's relentless. And then you're doing it, and then obviously you speak very good Spanish, but it's not your first language, and you've got to find documents that you maybe don't know how to find, and it must it must have been very, very scary for you, and particularly if your support, and I'm doing inverted commas here, is a your in-laws who are actually bullying you and creating much more distress.
But I think the part of the story was that obviously since from the first days, like a kind of as you said, like a kind of a bullying kind of a
Hmm.
component was in the whole relationship, and it was like also on the private sphere and on the material side, like on the admin side. And at first, my father-in-law was like, "Yeah, I'm the man here. I'm gonna take care of everything." And then he just went everywhere and just literally just fucked everything up. Like he started to make like promises. Like he made promises that in live word, so not like signed and everything.
Hmm.
And it was also like kind of awkward because there were like many moments when people were like, "Well, but you're not the holder of the rights, right? You're not you're not yeah, wait, you're not gonna inherit anything, right?
For
You're
you.
Yeah, I mean, like he was just he was not like a legal representative of anyone because
Hmm.
my son was the one who inherit anything or
Hmm.
to be the beneficiary of say life insurance, then that would be my son or me.
Hmm.
And so there you go. So in a legal sense, he was nobody apart of his father. And
Hmm.
basically, the story went down that very soon, once I started to, like be clearer, it came out that he just went around making promises like, we're going to buy the house. We made the down payment, right? So that was paid. But then the rest of it was still not handled. So it was like this limbo situation, that we didn't have the mortgage that would have been paid if we would have da 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 da.
Hmm.
So it was just the solution at the end was losing the house and losing the down payment. So which was also massive. But
Yeah.
but the thing is, he went around not even trying to fix anything, just like saying like, "Oh, we're gonna fix everything," and then it came out that I have to fix everything, and I was months went by, or even like a half a year, because in Spain, even to find a good lawyer is a difficult situation. And that was on the I would say that was on the admin side. So it was actually the legal battle is still going on. So we're still having reclamations with the bank who handled everything, and there are still processes going on. 3 years from the day, so over 3 years, which
Jesus.
is pretty crazy.
And all of this is expensive, isn't it, as well?
It is expensive. It is. So it
Mm.
was not. It's not an easy thing to do or deal with. So, but I think right now I'm at the point with it that I have a good team of lawyers, and whatever comes up, it's just passing on to them, and they say, "There you go. This is not my business. This is the business of the lawyers."
Yeah.
And I'm just like waiting for the results, and there you go. And they are also like really just very kind, and they were amazing part of this. Really, like I'm really I massively appreciate what they did because they
It's like you
did
create a sort of
impossible.
like a buffer around you with professionals because
Wow.
the legal side of things is so
The
complicated.
story is like whatever comes from Jordi or Jordi's people, say friends and people who appreciated him, is extremely positive. So the
Yeah.
so the lawyer who made everything possible, she knew him personally. So she came to the funeral with everything with another very close friend, and that's how it was. I think it was even like more personal for.
It's interesting that you say this because I had to go to court as well. I had to go to the
Hmm.
High Court in the UK to have a presumption of death
Yeah.
certificate, which was there's only ever been two issued in the UK. And I um, was approached by a legal friend who was a lawyer. I mean, really a friend of a friend,
Hmm.
really. And she took on the legal work, and
That's
she did
great.
it pro bono because it would have cost upwards of sort of, I think it was £25,000 the bill came in at, um, with a view that if we were ever to take class action against the boat, they would recoup it. But thankfully, I never did have to pay the
Mhm.
bill. They took that one, and it was a huge help because,
Yes.
like you say, where do you go to look for a lawyer in a situation like this? You're vulnerable. People will take advantage of you. That is a sad fact of being bereaved.
Yes, I think it is, because at first I started with one lawyer, and then I just realized that she's not, it's like she's not doing anything. And then it even,
Yeah.
since we are in this very psychological situation where we cannot really take a decision about anything, right? We all know
Mhm.
this. Actually, this is an information I got to know. I don't know if it was your podcast or another like grief podcast, but when I listened to it, I was like, shit. Like, I've been thinking for years that I'm just crazy, that I cannot decide
Widow brain.
chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream or what.
Yeah.
And then just realizing that, wow, it is just a natural thing. It just happened.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh,
Trauma response. It's a bit like having a baby. You just lose the ability to think for a while.
yeah. And that was, so that happened. And it was good to know.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, this is what this does, you see. And by you talking about the difficulties that you had with and are having with your in-laws, there will be people at home thinking, "Oh God, that's not just me then." And I don't know if you listened to Tasha's episode. She's my friend who came on, and she's quite angry with her late husband. She doesn't identify as, but she's pissed off with him. And
I don't think so yet.
yeah, there's plenty. Don't worry. We need to give you guys kind of time to catch up. But I then had a letter from somebody sent into the email account from who had felt the same way as she did. She hated her dead husband and felt like she was the only person in the world that felt like this. And it's community and finding your tribe. It really is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get you to go back in on this and tell us a little bit more
But
about
so
these in-laws.
I would leave the whole legal thing there. Like there's like, so that was like an avalanche of legal administration and like legal fights. They are still ongoing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna swap and go into the private sector of it. So
Go for it.
So the problem is that one needs to know that my mother-in-law, I knew about this. Like, she had like massive depression before me and my son would came into the family's life. And I would say that up until the death of Jordi, everything was quite regular, nice, like it was on the surface. My Jordi, he was working with his dad, but the thing was, Jordi was the boss, and his father worked for him. And the story of us is a bit that when we got to know each other, we were like 20, I don't know, 28, 20. He was like 26. He was younger than me. And he didn't have anything. Like, he came to the first time we met, he had these like terrible shoes and just like a broke down like van or who knows, and he met me because he was like on, the living in squats or on the sofa of his parents or whatnot. And you fast forward 6.5 years, and he was like a very successful businessman. We were already traveling. We had like big plans to have a beautiful house. And I don't think he was maybe I'm exaggerating, but he was just about like a year short of like earning his first million, because he was just very good in business, And once I came into his life and our son was coming, he just put his mind into it. Like his ambition, his mind into it. And he was really good with business.
Yeah.
I think he was really good with people and with business. And that's why his business was thriving, because he just knew how to talk to people, how to make connections and all that. So it's not just the professional part that you can connect to electric cables, but the rest of it. So I would say like even that dynamic was not a traditional one. And I would say that he was, apart of being the son, I would say that he was the best friend of his father, because his father was like a very special kind of, he is a very special kind of a person. Not in a necessarily positive way, because so like the Spanish reality of the thing, Spain is a very patriarchal society.
Yes.
Massively, they call it machista, right? So here in Spain, I think contrary to many other European countries, the attitude is still like, when are you having your second child, and just stay at home forever. It doesn't mean you're a lawyer or if you were an acrobat. It does not. No, you are to stay put. The woman's role is to stay in the kitchen and take care about the children, and never, ever, ever, ever again. Even, like I think we both are pretty young, and it's just like, even, like 30 something or 20 something mothers, it's a thing that you bring your kid to the school and you have mothers asking you, like same age girls or ladies asking you like, oh, when are you staying home forever? And for
Yeah.
me, it's just shocking because I'm not coming from that kind of a country. And most of my experience in Barcelona was in the artistic world. So it's the
Yes.
whole of gay, queer, just
Much more
really,
bohemian
yeah,
and
much more bohemian and much more like a free society kind of experience. And then I meet Jordi, baby's coming, and well, Marcel was 6 months old when we moved out here to the village. And I was not expecting to be hit so hard by this society, especially that it hit so very hard when he was dead already. So that's the thing. So that's, I think, the cultural background to it. And
so do you think that being in Spain, sorry, just to interject quickly, because we talk about feeling like public property when your spouse or partner dies,
so much so,
and
so much
everybody's
so.
got an opinion. Much in Spain, yeah. And I was thinking, like, did you have things like, was there an expectation on you that you must never marry or that you should marry,
Well,
or like
thing
where?
is, there's also like some very funny podcasters and radio personalities that kind of there's a lot of feminism here, right?
Mhm.
So obviously the young generation, we are very feministic and we are really like fighting hard in society to reverse or change these dynamics. Because even young guys, like, you meet young guys of your age and they are like massively patriarchal. Like they really
Yeah.
just I mean, like, I don't know, like you don't see guys on the first date telling you how many kids they want and being like offended if you have any opinion. Like they are like, yeah, I want to have 3 kids and you got them. And they're like, what?
Wow.
It's
Wow.
that's a lot to
Yeah.
handle. But oh wait, I lost the thing.
No. It was me. I interjected you and asked you about this kind of feeling of being own a
Yes,
piece of property and being owned, and that I'm hearing that in what you're saying, even kind of prior
yeah,
to Geordie dying, that once you become a mother, you kind of become a property of
yes.
the a public property. Yeah.
Yeah, I think but literally it comes by like being like a wife or a mother. It does become a public property, especially I would say that it's not that much terrible in the big city, because in the big city, like, no one
Yes.
really cares. Everybody has their own life, no
Yeah.
one really cares. But in traditional families, and in here, I would like to like say that there's like the Spanish. There are different. It's not like it's the same nation, but it's not the same nation. So, and there are like communities, like minorities or communities, like Catalonia is like a country. So the Catalan
Yeah.
society is special, and I'm pretty sure the Andalus and many parts
Yeah.
of Spain, they have like different customs and everything. So the Catalan society, to begin with, is very traditional, and they are not really happy about the immigration because they have a lot. So I would just leave that there. So generally, there is friction when the future wife, husband, whatnot is from another country, especially
Mhm.
if that country has some kind of a stigma to it. I'm coming from one of the many countries of all the prostitutes of Europe.
Oh, lovely.
So,
That's they say that to your face, or?
so here we go. Well, that's that. I don't mind, I mean, like, I make a
Sorry,
joke
I'm
of
just
it because that's pretty much the way to deal with it, right?
do you know what? It is, but also having your home country referred to as a home of prostitutes by people who are meant to be your family, it's not a particularly kind and
Mm.
nice way to describe your hometown, right? Your home country.
Yeah. I mean, like, just I joke about it, but that's that. So Spain is not that terrible with this one because there's not enough Hungarians here. But
Right.
you go to Italy, the assumption is straight on. You go to
Is
Switzerland, the
it?
assumption is straight on. Yeah, I mean, like in Switzerland, I was taking a taxi to get to one of the theaters where I was working in. Obviously, theaters like particularly tend to be in red light districts, so it was
Yeah.
the case. And literally, I just said, like, yeah, I'm Hungarian, no. And the guy was like, well, how do you charge for an hour? And it was like, oh, I was like, that's
Wow.
so
Well, I didn't know that about Hungarians, so I wouldn't have made that assumption about you, Melita.
obviously, like these are like not very educated generalizations.
No.
But the thing is, also I dedicate, like, I do pole dance, I teach pole dance. Obviously, I have a massive career in theaters and taking my clothes off. So that is a thing. even if it happens in great big theaters, like I used to work in El Molino, which is like the equivalent of the Moulin Rouge, uh,
Oh,
here in
wow. I
Barcelona.
went to see the Moulin Rouge recently. It was amazing.
Yeah, well, there was one place. I think it closed down before the COVID. It closed down in 2017, and then I'm not sure if it's reopened. But basically, it was, to say, one of the places.
Mm.
So I would say, like, obviously, I have a bit more to people take that assumptions to say, especially because it's like I teach sexy pole dancing, all that. So and
I think sexy pole dancing is quite more of a sport, actually. I mean, the strength that's
yes,
involved.
it is. It is. It is. So, and I think the whole thing with them, with the in-laws, just started to went wrong from the very beginning, because my mother-in-law already had like psychological problems, like massive psychological problems. I assume because she was never diagnosed, but she's somewhere between borderline personality disorder or like straight on narcissistic personality disorder. So,
Right.
so that's I'm not joking. It's very heavy.
No.
And while we were really happy and we were nearby, and obviously baby was like my son was in an age of when everybody enjoys the presence of a child, right? Everything was going well. Her, I think her mental, I don't know, health was going very, very, very well. But then the tragedy happens, and everything just becomes what it becomes. And the whole thing just started from the days, and then it went on the first month. I was spending a lot of time with them. I was trying to be, I don't know, as of help, because I just didn't know what to do with myself. My parents were here for a month and a half. They were doing everything with my son. They were helping. They were staying at home. And I was just, I was seeing my in-laws. And then from the very first day, it just started off that my mother-in-law just straight on, like every time she saw me, she was like, Melitta, you did not lose anything. It was just that. So
you did not lose anything.
Yeah, you did not lose anything. So that was her phrase. Every time she saw me, she told me that I did not lose anything because I'm.
And how is she making this assumption?
Because I'm pretty, because I'm young.
Oh, wow. So you can just replace him, right?
I really don't know. I mean, so it's been like a hot mess. So there were like comments that they don't mind if I get on with my life, but it was like in the very early days. But when actually the whole thing, it just went on to after a month and a half. I just very educatedly told them that I just really cannot see them that much. That I just really cannot handle this, because I need time for myself. I need to get back to take care of my son, because I was all alone. I was living alone. I was still paying rent. I was still working. I had only 2 weeks off from work. And obviously my work is teaching. So
and it's very person-faced, isn't it?
So I deal with women all the time. So it was also like a very hard time to get back to work and be like, obviously my work is to teach people in their free times. So they're not here to hear my drama, right? They are come to have fun and, to release and all that. So it was hard to get back to work and be, as cheerful as I used to be, or just anyway, just keep the whole business running and keep it up. And so I did that, and I was also taking care of my son. And the assumption was that somehow my in-laws would be helping me. And then very fast forward, like in the first 3 months, it came out that they are not willing to help me. They don't want to help me. And it was just like in a very toxic, terrible way that my mother-in-law would tell me on the phone that she doesn't want to, help me out with babysitting. And then I should get a babysitter. And by the time I got a babysitter and I communicated that with her husband, then it would be like a massive drama broke out that I'm taking their grandchild away from them.
Wow,
because she just denied you here at home. So,
and do you think this is mental health breaks, that she's having this?
Yeah, I believe so. So like, I would not like to, I don't know how to say, like, not blame them or anything, because like,
no,
they obviously had, with the money, they had interest, because we had, like, Jordi had life insurance. So the very moment they got to know that Jordi had life insurance, they were very interested in how to spend that money. The more everything went really, really bad when they realized that it's not going to be like that. And then it was all like controlling and trying to control, and then the whole thing just spiraled quite a bit out of control. So I would say like by the time of 6 months from the death, it was it was talking, it was everything. So it was just my mother-in-law going after my places where I used to buy food, which is not the same places where she buys food, asking literally everybody just to get to know, like, what am I doing? How am I doing? But never with like a positive attitude. It's not like, I'm worried about her. Is she okay? No, it was always like,
Yeah,
how can
yeah.
I find that she's blah, blah, blah. And fast forward around 9 months-ish from, so the next summer, I started to go out with actually that's another story, but I started to go out with one of the friends of my dad's husband. Well, we were not married, but that's another story. But I would say husband because that's what it was.
Yeah, it's a shortcut, isn't it? Yeah,
And so we started to go out. I would say, like, at this point, I would just say, it was a positive thing for me. He was really, at that point, he was showing a lot of love. He already knew our son. It was a relation that he was a friend. I knew him before. He was one of the people who came forward with all the difficulties and all that. Then I'm I'm already not in that relationship. So that ended.
No, but it feels like you needed some compassion and
Yeah,
love,
yeah. And it was literally like, for me, I was at the time when I was literally begging my father-in-law that they would like stop, I don't know, like stop stalking me, stop harassing me, stop, because it was just like everything, like it was just a terrible, terrible thing that went on, because it brings a whole lot of stress on you, like you
Oh, of course it. Yeah.
and for
Yeah.
me, the whole attitude was all this time was always like, I think whatever happens in families that have suffered such a loss on the first 6 months, I think that's forgivable. So my attitude is like, whatever happens in the first 6 months, or would I say a year maybe, that would be forgivable. So I would say, you're just devastated. You cannot take care of your kids for 3 months.
Yeah.
And your parents step in and they help you. That's okay. That's okay. That's completely okay. That can happen. I would say, what, you end up having like some alcohol problems or some, like substance abuse problems. I think that would be okay, because then, it's something that perhaps you're not.
We call this the chicken and wine phase, and it's sort of jokey term that came out from Lulu, really, because she turned to food and ate herself into almost an early death, really. I went into alcohol. And it's when you sort of say that kind of carte blanche for a while to just be a little bit crazy. And I completely agree with that. I think you almost have to go through that period where you are angry and bitter and doing some crazy shit that's out of character. And I think it is a phase. It's kind of a valuable part of the process. But yeah, I think after that, people do have to come back together and start to sort of do the work. And it is work.
Yeah, and I think the problem is that I went on, and somewhere at this time I realized that, like, I need to go and see like therapy. And then I did like a special grief therapy with a grief specialist psychologist. So that I make sure I process everything. Obviously my son was on therapy like from day one, because that was a really big priority, so that he could process everything like
Yeah.
a healthy manner, apt for his age. So on that side, on my side, on my son's side, I really did everything. But the thing was like, the only thing my in-laws did was like taking some pills. And generally with my mother-in-law, it was always like she would take the pills for 3 months, and then she would decide to get off the pills, and then it would just go haywire. And she would just like go crazy on everybody. And every time, so the thing went on to like almost like 2 years after, I think, my son was to spend summer, which was last summer, with my parents. It was like, well, let's see how he's doing like for 2 weeks, and then we see if it's going to be a month or something. And then it's also it was the same time that once again, even my mother-in-law, they were not doing like I as far as I know, they were not doing any kind of a speaking therapy. So they were not doing therapy, just like the pills, or maybe something that would be like a public, like once in 3 months, see a psychologist, which is really not much. And so at that point, it also went like very, very wrong, because at that time we were already living with my ex, my most recent ex, would say. And it was literally like he was begging my father-in-law just to, he was like, this is not good. Like my mental health is really on the line, that this just cannot really go on, that I have like so many phone calls, that I have this. And then they were also like, even when my son was away, they were like, they wanted to see us. I don't know, me and my new partner, I don't know how many times a week. So basically there was like this little process. Wait, I'm going to go back to the beginning. So I started going out with Marty. That's my ex's name. And what happens is that we really have to come out of I would say that we have to come out as a couple like so very early. It's not really healthy even, like you would meet a guy, and to your parents, you might take whatever from 1 month to 6 months or whatever time you need to present, whenever you feel. And the thing happened that the stalking and the harassment and the was so heavy that just for my own protection, we were not even dating, just kind of yet to say. We were going to date, but we just had to come out and just say like, yeah, we are together, just so that they calm down, because they were all like crazy about it. And they
were going crazy trying to find out if you were seeing somebody.
Well, actually, at that time, I think they already made the idea that I have one best friend who is just a best friend, and who was also like really good best friend, kind of a family best friend, say, Jordi, who is one male person. And then there was this other friend. They also had like businesses together, and they had things together with Jordi. And there was this guy who were like the two main, I would say, like male characters that would be on my side, apart of all the female characters and my family, for example. And I think they just went really crazy, like, like, I'm gonna be just nasty with this, like who am I fucking, like. Yeah. It was just that was on from like, I don't know, like 6 months, 5 months, or I think it's also like this really like patriarchal idea that, oh, if you're a single mother, widow, whatnot, you just cannot not be with someone.
Yeah. And you're not really allowed, there is this shame about kind of sexual feelings after grief, isn't there? And you'll be aware, so I guess you're aware that there is this phenomenon called widow's fire, where you do want physical love. Love's probably not the word. You want the physical side of a relationship because you miss it. And particularly if you've had a healthy, active sex life and then your husband just dies, you lose the love, but you lose that side. And actually seeking out physical comfort is very, very normal. And as long as it's done safely and you're not harming yourself, it's actually quite healthy, because well, it's what humans do, right? But people are so judgmental about it, and they're torn between telling you that you should move on. And somebody told me at Ben's funeral, oh, you're young and attractive, you'll meet somebody. And the same person was one of the people that was really, kind of disgusted when I became in a relationship with John. And I know that it stems from the not wanting to be forgotten. I know that's where it comes from. It's our own insecurities, but for fuck's sake, give us a break, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly the same experience I had. So like, I don't know, with her conclusion, my mother-in-law was all crazy. Like on the third day, she was telling everyone, like really crazy, like, I don't mind, she's beautiful, she can, and da 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 da. And there was like at the beginning. But then I was seeing nobody. What I was doing. So the first 6 months, I would take my son to school. I would do my job. I would go home. I would cry. I would grieve. I would try to meditate. I would do like all these healthy ways of trying to cope with it. But basically, what mostly I did, which is also another part of grief, is just like spending time alone. Because since I could not find people who could like, accompany me in that, I was just spending massive, massive, massive times alone. So like whenever I was not like in the mom position, I was just spending hours and hours on end alone. So there was nothing in it. And I think the whole, it's funny because I think the whole widow's fire thing, like rediscovering the sexuality and your sexual power. Obviously, I work in this sphere of energies. So I work with women, I work with these energies, and I always been on the, I would say like I always been on the sexy side of life. like openly.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, and it is what it is, and I think it's marvelous. Like I'm all for all the sexual educators, all the dancers, all the like these self-discovery retreats for rediscovering your sexuality or betterment and all that things. I love everything about that.
I'm
And
with you.
of course, it really hit me hard. I think there was a personal part of it that was like, oh my God, how do I keep being me with this loss? Like, do I even have, like, do I give myself the right to be the same sexy being or the same sexy dancer or erotic or sensual or whatnot? So that's like one part. And then there was this like societal and familiar part of it. And yeah, it was on the family part. It really just fell into it that by 6 months they were crazy and they were like convinced that I am fucking someone, which was not the case. I'm sorry for the hard words.
I like swears. Don't worry.
But it was there. It was just it was pretty much crazy, and I was like, well, no, I'm not. And when I went into, I need to plug my phone in. Apparently,
You're losing battery.
yeah, I am. Nikki, ¿me puedes bajar el cargador de arriba? Gracias. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. A little bit of Spanish for the listeners there. Thank you.
So I have my best friend at home, so he's gonna bring my down, and then we're just gonna switch to not less nicer background. But the thing was that I also so my story is also that I didn't even go into like one night stands or like just being around or having a social life and sex whatsoever. I went straight into a monogamous relationship, which lasted a year. Me and my son, we lived with my ex for over a year, and the relationship was a bit over a year. So it was really like like a very classical relationship. And with that came that somehow my in-laws just wanted to have the same very relationship as they had with their son. So they wanted to see us every weekend for dinner or for lunch. They were always insisting to stay for dinner when we were sometimes helping out with our son, but my son and all that. And it was a really strange situation to be in, because also my ex was really sympathetic with everything on that part, because for him, I mean, like, my ex has Jordi's face tattooed on his legs, right?
Oh wow!
I would say that for him it was an important friendship, right? So it was also, I think it was also the connection came that he was a bit accompanying me in the grief and such. And
also the shared grief. If he's grieving his friend and you're grieving your partner, and also the fact that you knew him before, there's a familiarity, a safety. I just watched, what was it called? It's a program on Apple, and it's about a therapist, and he starts to sleep with his late wife's best friend, and they refer to it as.
There's like a very, very famous, very famous. I don't know if it's very famous story, but I just stumbled upon it, and it's funny how whenever you get widowed and you just like all these little things pop up in your mind, like the movies that are about these situations and the songs and the books and
the Disney films.
and there's one like famous lady, Jenny Love Anker, who is the widow of a very, very famous mountain climber. She had a book. Actually, when I started to date Marty, I was reading her book about the relationship, her late husband and whatnot. And she, up to the day of now, she is married to the best friend who actually survived the same accident that his late husband died of. So.
Yeah, and traditionally it used to be the brother that would step in, wouldn't it? Back in the olden times. But yeah, I think obviously John didn't know Ben, and I didn't know Sarah, but because of the nature of the shared grief, it means that we are able to talk about them. And I think having somebody that knew them it must have been a huge comfort. And actually, how nice for you to have that for a year. And did you separate on good terms? Are you still friends?
No, we're not. We didn't separate on good terms, but that is a completely different story. I think the beginning, for me, all in all, not wanting to be toxic about it or anything. I think it was something that I needed at that time. I think it was as of a full result of the relationship, it was good for me. it helped me a lot to face everything else, like to face the whole family situation, because I could have not
And
done it all alone if it was just
no, it's a lot to do on your
yeah.
own.
And then I think as a partner, he really stepped in to try to alleviate that situation, because that's the thing. Like the last summer we were together, he was literally like begging my father-in-law to like do something, to like that this
Yeah.
just cannot go on. And he was also like, he was like, like, your wife is talking and accusing and just like emotionally abusing my partner, because it was just that, it was just too much. And every time we had that chat, he was like, oh well, you can imagine what I get. And we were like, well, that's not an excuse, right?
No, no, it's not. And has she had any sort of intervention since then, or are you
I
now
was
completely
because the
estranged?
whole situation ended up that it was exactly when 2020 23 started. That's when I finally left. I moved out of the house of my ex. We've been separated for a couple of months, but it obviously took time to find a place to stay.
Yeah.
And I moved out, and I just got all cords with everybody. And it also came out that the heavy part, the real heavy part of the whole story, is that it took me years to realize that my son was handling or dealing so terribly in school and everywhere. He has like this aggressive outbursts, and we were just having like all these series of problems, and we just couldn't know what the hell is going on. And then all of a sudden, it was the beginning of the next school year, so around September last year, he started to like throw like things at me, like really terrible phrases that are not of a child, right? Like everything was right when daddy was here because he paid the rent. Well, 6 year
Right.
old or 7 year old doesn't really have to know if you're paying rent or if you're paying a month.
No.
And it went to the point that he literally like things came out like, oh, you were only with Marty to not be alone, and and Papa just died and you just went with another, and all these stuff.
Wow.
And so it came out that they've been manipulating our son ever since, like ever since his father died, and that just hit me like a train. But it made everything make sense. So it all of a sudden made sense in a way.
I mean, this is awful. They're using a child as
They
a weapon
still do.
against his own mother.
They still do. And the thing is
They
that
still do.
when I said at the end of the year that we have many other family dramas, like many little extra situations adding to it. And then at the end, I was like, okay, this is over. We're not going to have any contact. You're not going to have any contact with the child because this just cannot go on because there's no communication. It was me begging them for 2.5 years to do something with them, to take therapy, I don't know, just to handle themselves. Because I would
To take some responsibility.
my point is always like, I think we all have to say like the time frame to say like until 6 months or until a year that we would forgive anything. That you would say like, all right, you might do something really terrible and it's forgivable because we all lived a terrible tragedy. But 2.5 years later, it's really just for me, I just cannot.
No. And also, you've got to prioritize your healing and your son's healing. And if this negative influence, and particularly, I mean, that's really bothered me, that has the idea that anybody would tell my child things about me. And that they would then repeat them back to me. That must have been incredibly hurtful.
And and things that are not of his understanding, like I remember him when we were already living with my ex, and I was already sleeping in the same bedroom and bed with him, and all of a sudden you could see that the child of his age does not understand like grown-up relationships. One day he would just out of the blue ask him like, where is like, why don't you see your ex-girlfriend, or where's your girlfriend? Because in his mind he just didn't realize that obviously mom is sleeping in the same bedroom with him, so she's the girlfriend, right? So he wouldn't understand, and then he would come home with all these phrases, and so I cut all cords, and the first and one reaction was that they took me to court to have their lyrics.
They took you to court for what?
Because they are the grandparents and they have the right to see their grandchild.
Okay, so they took you to court.
We are over this summer on the court case, and this Sunday they have their first visit.
Wow. Okay. So will he go? Will it be supervised? Will you be there?
No, the problem is that these are like so tiny cases, like family cases, that the
Hmm.
only way they would be denied visits if they would have like criminal charges. And if those criminal, as far as I know, if those criminal charges would be against us, so like if there would have been like physical abuse against us.
So it's got to be quite serious then. I mean, but I think that this emotional abuse and this drip feeding of poison into a child, I mean, that is abuse. They may not be
It
hitting
is, but
him.
the thing is, like, Spain is still on the patriarchy so hard that even physical abuse is very hard to prove and to deal and to condemn as such.
Hmm.
And emotional abuse is still like, yeah, it doesn't exist. Stalking, well, that doesn't exist. So it's still, the attitude is this, because I know, because I was, my lawyers told me that, like, I said, like, but I have like these messages or these, and you could, if you're a psychologist, you would, or a person
Mm.
a bit red, you would say like, wow, this is so toxic, this is so terrible, this is so dysfunctional. But on the base of the law, the fact is they are the grandparents, they used to have a relationship with the child, and they have the right to see the child. Dot. So that's where it ends. And of course, it was very devastating for me in a way,
Mm.
and that's
It's more
very
power
normal.
being taken away.
Hmm?
It's more power being taken away. You're losing control. This is your child, and you can't control who they see. Like that,
Yeah, because I wanted to get to the
you're.
point. I was offering them solutions all the way along. So we tried to make like mediation, which they only
Mhm.
came to insult me. And the grotesque part of it, that's not that in front of a third person, that's not a proof. Like, like mediation is so private that you cannot use it before the court, you know.
Oh my
So it
goodness.
was like, wow, I just endured like an hour and a half long session of insults, of being called everything that you can imagine, for nothing. And that also, so the thing is that they didn't want to collaborate on anything, and then they went from aggression to aggression, because the court case is also, like, mentally speaking, is another form of aggression. Let's say like they have the right to do it. And but it ended up that we agreed on certain visits, so that at least the visits are not interfering with our lives, like that. This is
Yes.
not on a day that is not compatible with my work, or just life in general. And then from now on, we'll see, because they never change the attitude. Like, they still think I'm gonna plug in the phone. I think I'm a terrible person and everything is my fault, and who knows what I am doing in my life.
So, do you still live quite close to
Yes,
them?
we live in the same village, so.
Oh, and do you have? Would you move? Is that something that's you've considered? Because so you lived in Spain for did you say 17
Hmm.
years?
Yes.
Yeah. So, was there any pull to go back to Hungary to be with your family,
Um,
or obviously you've created a network
I
here?
think the thing was, at the very beginning, if I knew what was coming, I would have just made the suitcases and would have just left in the first 2 weeks, and would have just left everything as lawyers, and would have just closed down by my business and everything. But I didn't know what was coming.
Hmm.
So at first I thought
Yeah.
they would be family, and they would help. And that's what they were saying, that they are here for me, and even the more extended family were like, we're gonna be helping. And then it was also just step by step, seeing how alone I was, and how it was
Yeah.
quite the contrary. And I think the lucky part was that lucky. Anyways, I would say, like, the moms from my son's school were pretty supportive and amazing. Um,
Mum squad.
like, my friends came forward, like, many. I think it's the same story for many, 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 many of us. That it wouldn't be the friends that you would expecting to come forward, but it would be just kind of a random friends. Like, I have one friend, Christina. She was really like a really good friend of Jordi's. We were friends. I've been to her wedding and all that, but she was Jordi's friend. And once everything happened, she just came so massively forward that we are really, like, really close friends right now. So
Yeah. You're right. You do. You lose a lot of people along the way, but you gain some others. And it's you talk about the school mums. I've my daughter started her school last year, and it was a new school, and I've got this just incredible group of friends, and we just look after each other. And I don't know whether when you find the tribe, the people that you really care about you, I think the kind of mum network, the female network of support is
Yeah.
fantastic. But I did lose some friends along the way, and friends that I thought, were my lifelong friends, and they just either didn't want to be around this messy, ugly version of me, or the other side was they found the climb back up too difficult, because when you're in your little kind of box, people know how to deal with you, and then when you start to pull yourself back out again, unfortunately, some people don't like that.
Yeah.
But that's life. I'm not friends with the kids I was friends with at primary school. You build new relationships that work for the time in your life, I guess.
Yeah, I also think that sometimes it feels like, like people would think that it's like a contagious thing. Like, oh my
Yes.
God, like, none will be next.
Yeah, or that, I mean, that you might be after their bloated, balding husbands for some reason, but I wasn't. So, Melita, what,
Yeah.
what, what does life look for you? You just heard that on delay, did you?
Yeah,
What does life look like now?
to catch that one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What does life look like for you and your son now? So you've got a new place. You're still in the same village, and obviously you're still working. Are you still doing burlesque shows? Can people see your shows?
Well, actually, I'm gonna return to performing. I did my first performance like this summer. And then sometime soon, somewhere in October, I'm gonna do some other performances, but I'm really slow on that part because well, when I think the losing performances was also like the big part is COVID, that it just killed everything
Ah,
that's theater related. So, and since I'm on the teaching spectrum of everything, I'm very comfortable there, and when some performance comes up, I'm open to it, but I'm not like actively looking for it because it's also like I'm right now I cannot go off 3 months on a cruise ship.
no, of course.
But
But it must. I mean, I am going to just ask you a bit more about this, because it is phenomenal what you can do with your body, woman. I had a brief look at your Instagram, and I mean the power in your body and the skill you have. You're an athlete. Wow. Did you do that prior to Jordi dying, or is
yes.
this something you picked up since
I think there's
before?
like 17 years about of
Oh wow.
pole dancing. The funny story about everything is that I was 15 and I already knew that I wanted to be a stripper. Uh,
Yeah.
I think I had like the early encounter with the movie called Stripper with Demi Moore. But then that was probably true. That's just a funny story to say, to tell. And I guess it was always like the same thing. And then in my 20s, it was already circus and everything, and burlesque came in. And that was just a marvelous time of my life because I think I just coincided with the upheaval of neo burlesque, which was really heavy
Mm-hmm.
in the UK, and thankfully did not
Oh yeah.
die because of the COVID crisis. So I know that in the UK you still have a whole lot of burlesque shows and everything. I used to do a burlesque festival,
Yeah.
and I used to like generally once or twice, so once a year, I used to like travel to London to do some things. But it was like,
Well, maybe we could get you over for Widfest. Have you heard about my plan to create a festival for widows
actually, I
and
saw this the other
associated?
day, and I thought like, what marvelous thing! Because what I also see here, just to drop another topic into everything,
Mm,
uh,
it's like talking to myself. You go off on a tangent.
yeah,
I love
the
it.
thing like what I see here in Spain, we have no resources. Like I see all the way things that are going on in the UK, and it's
Yes.
marvelous. I mean the payment they fight out for parents that were not married. I'm still fighting for
Mhm.
to get my video, and I'm still being denied. Right? So I am in the process because they are like, oh yeah, if you didn't go to a place and like register your relationship, it doesn't matter how many years you live together, right? And
Oh, it's
yeah, yeah,
awful.
and there's that, and they have no payments unless you were married. So it's really grotesque. Like like what, especially considering Spain, there are a lot of marriages, right, that are just for the papers.
Mm. Yeah, and people are having to get married in hospice because they know
Yeah.
that their partner won't get support unless they're married. And yeah, it's incredibly, it's archaic, and it's actually kind of that patriarchal idea that, you must be married in order to be valid. If you're not married and your partner dies, you don't
Nobody. I
exist,
mean,
right?
I always say like the problem with this, but when somebody wants to charge me money or comes up that I don't know he owed whatnot, da da da, then I'm the widow. To arrange everything, I'm the widow.
Hmm.
I'm the mother of his. So for all the shit stuff, I'm the widow. But to get any kind
Hmm.
of a benefit, to get any kind of a payment, to even to be the mother of my son, then I'm not. You know, then for all of
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
not the widow, and it's like just that grotesque. Feeling that like what am I even?
What am I? This is exactly it. It's that feeling of being an outsider and not belonging. Because the only people who were widows that I knew were my parents' age or
Yeah,
older. I didn't know
absolutely.
anybody my age. And now, of course, I have an enormous
Yeah.
network. And
There's a
I
lot of us.
talking to somebody on the school run, and then you realize that you just talk about death kind of really
Yeah.
casually on the school run, and it's not normal for other people. But this is who we are now. We are forever changed in ways that we can't reverse. And not all of the ways are bad. I've spoken before about how I was, a bit wafty, and I wasn't a strong person, and now, I alternate between rocking in a corner and knocking down walls.
Mm.
There's but it's learning your limitations and learning to take this horrible experience and push it into something good. I mean, and what you're doing here in telling your story, this is you contributing back into the widowed world. This is you doing your bit, and it's like pass it forward, isn't it? It's the way we support each other through the journey.
Yes.
It looks a bit like those are boots behind your head, by the way.
It's that
It looks a bit like you're lying on your front with boots on.
what kind of like a guitar thing, like a decoration. It's a electric guitar. But
It's very nice, but it was giving me like sexy boot vibes in the back. Well, so what are your plans for the future? Are you going to stay in Spain?
well, I would not discard my future plans
Uh-huh.
for all the stalking reasons I have. Uh,
Oh, of course. Oh
so
gosh, yes, I should.
have future plans, and my future plans are in Spain. So I would say, so I would say as much. I would
Mhm.
my job and what I do is also like a big part of it. The
Yeah.
positive thing that really kept me here in this village and this place is that I have my business here, and that was just something like a little like a tiny thread that just like kept me pulling through. That I had to wake up and go to work, and I also like I work with like 99.9% women, so that's one of my tribes. So there was also female tribe
Yeah.
behind me that was really like taking, I don't know, just like support, like being supportive, like all through these. Like I mean, like I really appreciate them because they come to have fun, and then they have this shit show of a pole dancing teacher, and they've all been like very supportive. Mhm.
I bet they felt very special that you entrusted them with your story. I bet that actually they felt
Really?
it probably increased your connection with them. Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, if every lesson was just you crying on the floor, they might find a new pole dancing teacher. But I think it is important. A friend of mine, I won't name her, but she cried yesterday in the high street, and I said, it's okay. Like, it doesn't matter. It's human. Humans cry. Like, we need more people to show that it's okay to feel
I think
these things
it
because
also changes us so much, and it's like one is motherhood, and then like widowhood. It changes so much because I know that right now, I like my reactions are so different. So at one point,
Mhm.
a very good student of mine, she just like in the middle of the class, she just burst out crying for whatever reason. And I just give her a hug, and that's the thing that we know because of being mothers first and foremost, but then after that, because of being widow. So
Mhm.
and I know like after that she was so appreciative. She was like, "Well, I don't know what magic you did," and I was like, "I did nothing. Like I just
It's just so
yeah, well, but
human.
I mean
Like,
like it's just what psychology says that you should do, really."
yeah, and sometimes just that feeling of connection to another person, it's more than words, isn't it? And yeah, I launched from not wanting to be touched to being a big hugger. So you never quite know what you're going to get with me, which
Hmm.
is just a surprise. Well, Melissa, thank you. It has been really incredible to hear your story, and I am really grateful to you for all your candor and for talking so openly about your experience of having really challenging in-laws. And I'm really sorry that you had to go through that, because let's be honest, it's hard enough already without that complication. I mean, I have a very good relationship with Ben's mum, but his brothers haven't always been brilliant. I'm a victim of the empty promise myself. You know, we'll come and paint your house, or you know, one of my children at the time was sounds so much like yours. I mean, he was being quite he was throwing chairs and stuff at school, and they were like, no, we're going to get you some help. You don't have to do this alone. I'm still
Yeah.
waiting. 6.5 years in. So 5.5 years, sorry. So yeah, I think when it comes down to it, there really is only one person that's going to get you out, and it's you, isn't it? And well done to you for doing it and for creating a life. Well, thank you ever so much. And for anybody who's got any questions for Melitta or for me, please do let us know, and I can pass them to her before Friday's episode. And please do find her on Instagram. I will share her account because it's sexy.
It's not beautiful.
It's gorgeous. Well, thank you so much. And it really has been a pleasure to talk to you. And I do have plans to come to Spain at some point. So if I do, I shall see if I'll go to the right place, though, yeah? Not Madrid.
Well, I think so.
Thank you so You take care, my darling. And for everybody else, you take care of yourselves, and we'll be back with you on Friday.